Welcome back to Have a Day Podcast. I'm your host, Brian McRae, and we have another episode coming up with someone that I've known for about
too long,
40 years. Yeah, he might have even covered me in high school.
I did. I did.
Make sure you check us out on all our social media channels, Instagram, and our YouTube channel at Have a Day Podcast. Our guest today is Frank Boal. And as I said at the beginning, we've known each other for 40 some odd years.
Yeah.
Been in Kansas City since 1981. 40 years of TV, radio, a little bit of everything, and ingrained in this community and stayed here. And that's something that we found out that a lot of people, once they get here, they didn't know a lot about Kansas City maybe in the beginning, but once they get here, they stay here and they like it very much. So we're going to have a good time with Frank. But first, we're going to do some fun little Q&A.
Oh, this will be good.
It's 5 questions.
Okay.
And to see if you can go 5 for 5 or 4 for 5.
Sure.
That'd be pretty good. It'll kind of
What if I
touch
go
on
0 for 5?
You're not going to go over 5. I threw a couple easy ones in there for you. So it'll go over pretty much your travels and where you've been in cities and things like that. So first off, we're in Kansas City. We're the city of fountains. You're from Pittsburgh. It's a city of bridges. How many bridges are in the city of Pittsburgh?
442 or 444, right in there somewhere.
You're close, 446.
Oh, I knew.
And there are more bridges in Pittsburgh than any other city.
That's right. That's because of the Three Rivers.
And the Three Rivers. And a lot of people think that Venice, Italy has more, but Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has more with 446 bridges. So I'll give you that one.
That was close.
You're close in there. Okay, Pittsburgh hosted the first night game World Series. In what year?
I want to say it was 19, is it 60 or 61?
Go up a little bit more.
Okay, it's 1969 then.
1971.
Oh, it was not till 71?
Yes.
It was against Baltimore?
Yes, it was.
It was against Baltimore, right?
The first nighttime World Series game was hosted in Pittsburgh in 1971.
Do you remember the name of the field?
Forbes Field.
Field.
On the campus of the University of Pittsburgh.
It's now a parking garage.
But they still have the wall up.
Oh, they stole the wall.
Yeah,
I've Bill Mazeroski.
Yeah, they'll still have the home plate. You can see that, and they still have the wall where Maz hit the home run.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so can't give you that one.
No, don't give me that one.
So 1 for 2. Number 3, a Villanova one. Villanova's first season of varsity football was in what year?
Oh, good Lord. I don't know. I want to say the 1800s?
Yes, late 1800s.
1897?
1894.
Okay, I knew it was right in there somewhere.
First year, and you were a varsity football player at Villanova. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
I should know more about that history, yeah.
Okay, number 4. Your first year in Kansas City, covering sports, you had the Western Conference Finals. Right?
Yes.
Yes, the Western Conference Finals between
Kansas City Kings and the Houston Rockets, right.
Who won that series, and what was the total of that series?
Yeah, Houston won it. I think they won 4-2.
4-1.
Okay, 4-1. And I know the two coaches were Del Harris for Houston and Cotton Fitzsimmons for the Kings.
And that was, I think, the only time that the Kansas City Kings made it to the Western Conference Finals while in their short time in Kansas City.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So
I was there 3 days after I got here.
You had just gotten here.
I was in Houston, Texas. Yeah.
Covering that series. All right. And the last one. There have been 2 Final Fours at Kemper Arena.
Oh, boy.
Men's and women's. What years were both?
Well, the men's was 88.
Right.
Of course, that's when Kansas, Danny and the Miracles won. The women's was after that, I think, and it was University of Tennessee. The University of Tennessee?
It was Tennessee, and I forget who they were playing.
Right, I forget who they were playing. I forget the year, but it was after, I think it was after 8. I thought it was after 88.
It was 1998.
Okay.
10 years
later. I knew it was after 88.
It was unique because Kemper Arena was one of the only arenas before they went huge to host a men's and women's.
Especially 1988 was the last one they held in an arena. That
men's
size,
and women's Final Four.
And they did it because it was the 50th anniversary of the NCAA championships, I think, and they'd played a bunch at Municipal Auditorium.
Municipal still holds the record for the most Final Fours ever.
Yes.
John Wooden won a lot of championships.
How about that?
Right down the street from here.
It's still there, too.
Still kicking. All right, we're going to get into it here with Frank. Now, I'll give you 3 for 5 in that. And in baseball terms, that's pretty good.
I should have been better.
From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. How was your upbringing there, and what things did you learn in Pittsburgh and being in that part of the country that shaped the way you went about your life?
Yeah, well, my upbringing was great. Mom and Dad, I had 3 siblings who were all older than I was. I had 2 sisters and a brother, and then I'm 5.5 years younger than my brother, and I'm the youngest one in the family. But it was great. We lived on a dead-end street, and these are all the things you hear about. We had a 555-acre park right out of our backyard. It's Frick Park. And it was right behind our house. So you just go in there and explore and have great times. You probably, in this day and age, they'd be afraid to send their kids down to the park, be afraid something would happen to them. But back then it was, just being before the street lights come on, it was one of those deals. So it was an idyllic upbringing. Went to grade school there, went to St. Bede grade school. I was right down the street, walked to and from every day. Then I went to Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh. But when I was in grade school, I started playing football. And I played baseball and basketball and all the sports, but even swam for a while. But I started playing football in Western Pennsylvania. Football was king in those
still
days.
Is.
Yeah, still is. It's just huge in Western PA. And went to the grade school all-star game for St. Bede's. I was honored to be named our representative for the grade school all-star game. And during that all-star game, I met a guy. His name was Chucky Hammer, still my best friend today, suffering a little bit with some physical problems he's been having. But I hooked up with him, then we went to high school together. But Chucky I was from what they called the sissy side of town, okay? All our dads they all worked, they were all white-collar workers. My dad worked for H.J. Heinz his entire life. So we were on that side of town. And Chucky and another friend of mine named Mark DiGiozio, they were the sons of steelworkers. And between those two guys, being their good friend and stuff, they taught me toughness. And they taught me a little bit about what football was going to be as you progress through, because high school, grade school was one thing, high school became something else, and then college football beyond that. So those guys really taught me toughness and the integrity of the game and playing as teammates. And I think I really learned that in Pittsburgh. I really got that basis of the thing because you can be one thing, but just don't step out of your lane. It's an 11-man sport. Okay, you're not going to do it by yourself no matter how good you think you are. And those guys, they taught me that, and they taught me the toughness of the game.
Then you go after high school.
Yeah.
Go to Villanova. And Pittsburgh and Villanova, even though they're in the same state.
Yeah, right. Totally different worlds.
Different worlds, yes.
Yeah, totally different worlds. So when I was coming out of high school, our team was ranked the number 1 team in the state of Pennsylvania, high school team. And we'd gone undefeated, and we had 16 seniors on the team. And by the time we hit like February, after the season was over, everybody had a scholarship except me. I was the smallest guy on the team. I'd started for 3 years, but I was the smallest guy on the team. I was like 5'8", 145 pounds. So who wants a 5'8", 145-pound running back, right? So I'm going and I'm applying to schools. Now I think I'm going to have to go to a school and then maybe walk on because I wasn't getting any offers. And one of my friends, his sister was dating a guy who was a Villanova grad. So he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, would you be interested? Villanova's looking for running back. Would you be interested in taking a weekend at Villanova?" And Villanova, I thought it was a Baskin-Robbins ice cream flavor. I had no idea who they were. And so I said, at that point, absolutely, I'll go. So we went. I went and visited for a weekend in late February, early March. And there were 2 of us there. They had 1 scholarship left. The other kid was 6 feet, 185 pounds. we're both going for running back. I'm 5'8", 145 pounds. So I'm thinking, I'll enjoy myself. It'll be a great weekend. I'm not getting this scholarship, right? So we go in on Sunday after we had a great weekend with all the football players out there, parties, the whole deal. I'm sure I was hungover on Sunday when I went in to see the coach. And this kid went in first. I wish I could remember his name. But he went in before me, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to go in. He went to talk to the head coach. He's going to get the scholarship. I got no chance. He's in there 15 minutes or so. I can't hear what they're saying. So I'm just sitting in the coach's office waiting. He walks out of with the head coach, Alex Bell, and he goes, hey, man, it's really nice meeting you this weekend. See ya. And he gave me no indication of what had happened with the coach. So I hear this Alex Bell, this high, squeaky voice, and he goes, is Frankie Boal out there? And so I walked in. Yeah, coach, I'm out. So I walked around the corner. I walked in his office and gone, Frankie, how'd you like to be a Villanova Wildcat? And I went, oh, my God. If I could have climbed across his desk and gave him an hug and a kiss, I would have. I said, yes, sir, coach, I would love to. Apparently what happened was the kid who was in front of me, his dad had gone to Naval Academy. And so he decided at that time he was going to go to Naval Academy. So he'd told coach, hey, coach, thanks but I'm going to go to Naval Academy, just like my dad. It's funny because my freshman year at Villanova, we played the Naval Academy cadets, or plebes, at the Naval Academy. And he came up to me after the game and said, you remember me? I said, yeah, you remember me? He said, yeah. He said, congratulations on a scholarship or whatever. And it's funny because one of their assistant coaches at the Naval Academy was Roger Staubach, who was a Heisman Trophy winner and the whole deal. He'd gone to Navy. You owed them 5 years after you were done. And I think they let him go after 2 years to play, then go to professional football. But he was...
That was unusual at that time.
Very unusual.
Guys out.
Right. Remember, we're right in the Vietnam War's cranked up now, too.
And you thought at one point that you were going to get drafted.
Yeah, well, that was after I graduated from Villanova. But
right.
So, yeah, I went to Villanova, and it was a perfect place for me. It just really worked out for me. Great place to be. I think in those days, schools like Notre Dame and Pitt and all those schools were bringing in 85, 90 guys as freshmen, as the freshman class, weed their way through them, take their scholarships away after freshman year and all that. Villanova, I think there were 19 of us. And by the time we graduated, only 12 of us graduated from Villanova after we got out and after we got done playing football and graduated. So
you were a 3-year starter.
Yeah, 3-year starter at Villanova. Honored to be in their Hall of Fame. So it really did work out for me at Villanova. It was just the perfect size, perfect place. We played the perfect schedule. Coaches gave me a chance despite my size. So it really worked out. So honored later with being inducted in the Hall of Fame. I still don't know if I deserve or not to be in their Hall of Fame, but because maybe of everything else, I coached there for 4 years.
Right, and that's what.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So you coached there. You're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
What you're going to do.
Right. Well, my whole deal was when I graduated in the in the spring of 1969. Vietnam War is raging, and they have the draft. And if you're not married, don't have kids or whatever, you are eligible for the draft, right? So I got out, and I thought I was going to be drafted. And I had a couple concussions when I played at Villanova, so I had a medical
that you
record
know of. Probably.
That I know of. I probably had a lot more than I think I had, yeah. So so after I graduated, I had a medical record, and I went back to Pittsburgh and just waited to get called up by the draft board for my physical. So actually that first year I coached at my old high school, Central Catholic. I went back there and Joe Scully was the head coach, God bless him. And he said, yeah, come on, why don't you coach our freshmen? And I said, okay, I'll help coach freshmen. Sure, no problem. And I did that October. It was a Tuesday on October. I think it was October 10th, as I remember. I'd gotten a letter. They said, your physical is scheduled for October 10th. I said, okay. So I went down to the draft board on October 10th, and I handed them my medical record and went to the physical, passed the physical, went back to them. There's a 3-person board there, 2 women and a man. And they said, okay, we're going to look at this. We're going to make you 4F right now. 4F meant you couldn't serve because of a physical condition you had, right? But we're going to review this, and we'll get back to you. In December, they sent me another letter. And it said, we have now reclassified you 1A, which means you're eligible for the draft again. We thought your concussions would not hold you out. You could do something in the military,
right,
despite maybe it wasn't combat,
do something.
but we need you to do something. And I said, fine. Or, I went, fine. Deal was they didn't call me back for a physical at that same time they reclassified me. So I'm sitting waiting to get recalled to get another physical. Then you'd be, put into the pool, right? Well, in January of 1970 was the first draft lottery, and I pulled 252 for my birthday. So it was just sheer luck of the pool, of the bingo pool, that I did not get drafted. So I was never drafted. So it was just
wasn't in the cards
fate
for you
at that point. Yeah, just fate. Wasn't in the cards. And it's funny to this day, B-Mac. When I talk to Vietnam vets, and they're my age, I always feel guilty. And despite the fact how much that war tore our country apart, I still feel guilty about not having done something or served during that period of time. I just do. I don't know why. Guys say, "Oh, you're so lucky you didn't do it." Even the vets would say, "Hey, man, God bless you. You didn't have to do this," and end up we're suffering with PTSD, and I'm missing the bottom half of my leg, or I'm missing my arm, or I can't see, or whatever. They still say, thank God you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to serve. So it was just one of those things that really still hits home to this day.
So you coached for 5 years?
Yeah, I coached for 4 years at Villanova.
Right. 1 year at high school, Villanova, and then you get to the point where it
just wasn't for me.
No, I get up in the morning and it's not my passion.
It's just not my deal. It wasn't.
So you go out to the West Coast.
Yeah, right. I decide I want to stay in it somehow. And I didn't want to be a coach anymore. And I used to do a show. This is before coaches got millions of dollars for doing their radio shows and stuff. In fact, I think I used to get a gift certificate for the Marinade Diner, which was right down the street from Villanova, for doing the coaches show. I'd go in. The head coach didn't want to do it, and he just didn't want to be bothered. And I think it was every Tuesday, I'd go meet with these guys. They were just two guys who did our games. They were both insurance salesmen, so they weren't in it full time. And it became the highlight of my week. I loved doing it, right? I was really having fun, and we'd bring a player on and do the whole thing that they do, talk about the next opponent. What we did last week, talk about the next opponent, and have a player, which was the typical format, right? So I started talking to these guys, and I said, hey, I'd really like to do this, but I'd really like to do it sort of on a full-time thing, like be a full-time play-by-play guy. And they said, well, you should have some journalism credits or whatever. I was a finance major at Villanova, a BS in finance. So I was going to go to Wall Street and do all those fun things, but that didn't really, appeal to me either. So I asked these guys, I said, well, you should go back to school. Temple, right here in Philadelphia. They have a great broadcasting school. Syracuse is up the street. Okay. And I said, nah, I don't want to stay in the East Coast. My friends have already started talking to me about coming to Wall Street, come to work with us, do all that sort of thing. I said, I got to get out of here. And so the one guy says, hey, San Francisco State University in San Francisco has a program that if you have your degree in another, major, like you do with finance, they will put you into night school and they will just cram you with courses in journalism. And they have a radio station on campus, and they have a TV station on campus as well. And I thought, well, West Coast is about as far away as I can get from Philadelphia. So I packed up everything I owned and told the coaches. The one saving grace was the coaches convention that year. Okay, after we had gotten through that season, my final season, I was going to be at Villanova, was in San Francisco. Just happened to be. It was just coincidence. Maybe the stars aligned again, just like the medical situation with Vietnam. But so I go to San Francisco. I don't go to one meeting. I go out to San Francisco State. I enroll and tell them I'm coming. I'll be here in this summer. We can, because it was already, the session was in session already, the journalism deal. They had everybody in. So my grades were good enough, and they said, yeah, we'll definitely take you. You can start in the summer. And I said, fine. And so I left, went back to Philadelphia, 114 Burnside Road, never forget it, packed up everything I owned in my car. everything I owned, all my clothes.
You had it all.
I had a stereo. Okay. And I think I had $547 in change. And I got all out of the bank. I put it in my wallet. Okay. 5 $100 bills and the rest. And I packed up everything I owned and I moved to San Francisco. I didn't know a soul in the city. And
You've never been out to the West Coast,
I had never been to the West Coast in my entire life ever before that. So while I was out there, I looked for some places to live. So these guys, I ended up talking to them as well, told them I'd be out right after the convention was over. I'd be there late January, early February. And they said, yeah, we're losing a roommate at the end of January. You can move in with us. We have a 3-bedroom apartment on Pacific in Pacific Heights. And they gave me a price, and it was, I think it was it's about $120 a month. And you imagine living in San Francisco, which is one of the most expensive cities in the country. Back in those days, it was still pretty affordable. So I packed up everything I owned. I drove to San Francisco, moved in with these guys, and started going to school at night. And that was it for I was there for 2 years.
You were night classes, but you're also working
during the day. I was driving a truck for Wells Fargo Bank. I was not driving a Brinks style truck that had all the cash in the back, but I was driving this is the old days where you could cash a check on Friday, which you really didn't have the money in your account, and it wouldn't come out of your account until Tuesday. So you could come back in on Monday if you're going to get a paycheck or whatever on Monday, put it in, and then you could cover that check that you wrote. So I was picking up all of those checks every day from our Wells Fargo Bank banks in San Francisco. I'd drive from bank to bank. I had this big bag, waterproof bag. It was one of those clip-on bags, and I had a little Ford Courier pickup, one of those tiny little pickups. I just throw those checks in the back of my truck and drive to the next, bank, pick up that check, throw in those checks, then take them downtown to the collating center. Some guy back it into the dock and throw those checks into the collating center. So I did that for a couple of years. Yeah, while I was going to school at night. So.
When did the call come about the job opening in Kansas City? Yeah, well, here's the deal. So we're talking
1976. Okay, I don't get here for 5 more years. So I'm applying for radio stations or whatever all over the country. My whole goal at that day was to be a play-by-play guy. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, so I'm applying to all these places and I'm getting zeros from everybody. Finally, this station, KFDR, named after Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in Grand Coulee, Washington, try looking that up on a map, says, yeah, we'd like to have you there. You can do our high school play-by-play stuff, and you can sell advertising and want you to be a disc jockey as well. So I'm figuring, okay, I'll do what I have to do this. I moved to Grand Coulee, Washington. I moved from one of the greatest cities at that time, San Francisco, to a place that has like 950 residents and a radio station. It's right where the Grand Coulee Dam is, okay, which backs up Lake Roosevelt on the Columbia River. And most everybody's in the dam business up there. So I did that for a few months. I met a guy on a sales call. He said, I'd like you to come over to our place. We have 2 high schools. You can do both those high schools. That was in Chelan, Washington. So I moved over there, worked there for about a year or so. Then I moved to Eureka, California. And I was going to do Humboldt State University, is in Eureka. I was going to do play-by-play for their football and basketball team and work for KINS Radio. So it was a great deal for me. And be a disc jockey during the week to pick up extra money and maybe do some sales there as well. So I moved there. And Eureka, California also happens to be one of the smallest TV markets in the country. So I'm still doing radio, and I'm still wanting to do the play-by-play stuff, right? So a friend of mine comes who I'd met through going to games and covering stuff. He worked at the local TV station. He worked at KIEM TV in Eureka. And he says, hey, man, he says, I'm leaving. I'm going to Portland, Oregon. And he said, there's going to be a job opening. I've recommended you for the job. And I had no inkling about television. I had no thought about going to TV. So I said to him, yeah, I don't know. I'm still on this play-by-play track. I want to do that instead. And he said, it pays better. And I went, ding.
Like, really?
Okay. So I went over to KIM TV, changed my whole track at that time, and went from KIM TV in Eureka, California to WBAY in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Applied for a lot of jobs while I was at KIM. Almost as soon as I got there, I started sending tapes out because I was in a really small market. My son Garrett had been born in Eureka. And so I've got a wife and a family, and I'm starting to think, oh man, and I'm older. Remember, I've spent a lot of time not being in the business. So I didn't start the business till I was 29 years old. So I was pretty old.
Yeah, so you're behind the times.
So I'm way behind everybody else. Yeah. So I go to BAY, work at WBAY, did the sideline reports for Green Bay Packer football. And while I was there, we're covering their preseason camp. And I'm up there doing interviews and stuff. I get this kid starts following me around. And he's going, well, what'd you ask that guy that question for? What'd you ask him that question? What are you doing? So I turned to my photographer, and this kid walks away. I said, who the hell is that kid? And he goes, oh, that's Kevin Harlan. That's Bob Harlan's son. He's the president of the Packers. I went, Kevin, buddy, come on over here. Let's talk for a minute. Yeah, whatever you want to know, come see me, whatever. So that's where I met Kevin Harlan. So it was great. But I worked there, got a lot of good experience working in Green Bay and covering the Packers, then going down to Milwaukee and covering the Brewers and the Bucks. And so the resume starts to look better. And I started applying for other jobs because BAY's in the 88th market in the country. So I get two job offers, one from St. Louis, which is a bigger market in Kansas City. And remember, my whole goal now is you're going to be on TV. You want to go to the biggest market you possibly can to make the most money you possibly can. You're thinking that way, right? So I get a job offer from St. Louis and a job offer from Kansas City. And obviously, I'm going to take the job offer from St. Louis. It's a bigger market, be able to cover the Cardinals. The Rams were still there. And the whole deal. And Kansas City was great, too. They had basketball at that time. And they had the baseball team with the Royals, and they had the Chiefs and the whole deal. But I'm thinking St. Louis, a bigger market. It's about the
bigger brand.
Yeah, bigger brand, the whole deal, right? So what happens is I get job offer from both. And the St. Louis job, guy calls me and says, listen, he said, we just got bought. We got bought out by a big conglomerate. We have a 90-day freeze on hiring. And he said, but as soon as we're done with the 90-day freeze, you'll be our guy. So I had already called, then I had to call the guy from Kansas City, Mike McDonald, who ended up being my boss. I called him on the phone. I said, hey, Mike, I got a job offer. I'm going to take a job offer in St. Louis. He said, well, explain the job offer to me. Maybe we can make it sweeter. He couldn't meet the money, but he said, listen, he said, they said they'll hire you back. They'll hire you in 90 days. I said, yeah. He said, do you have it in writing? I said, no. He said, you sure they'll hire you back in 90 days? And I said,
that's what he said.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And then he said, you got a job offer here right now. So my thinking was, even though St. Louis had offered me the job as a bigger market, I now have 3-month head start on going where I want to go.
Right.
Either want to go back to Pittsburgh, my hometown, or go back to Philadelphia. There was this thing called ESPN roaming around out there. CNN was doing their nightly deal with sports. So I'm thinking, I got to get going. So I called St. Louis. I said, I'm not taking the job. The guy was livid. He was really pissed. And so then I called Mike. I said, yeah, I'll take the DAF job. He said, fine. And the rest is history from that point, my friend. That was, I started on April Fool's Day, 1981 at WDAF TV here in Kansas City. So, yeah, it was a good choice for me. Made a
great choice.
A great guy. I mean, it was great for my career. It was awesome.
And coming to Kansas City and looking at the landscape of what sports was on TV then, and now 40 plus years later, you're going through everything. What are some of the big changes that you saw, and when did that divide start to when sports was not as, what we say, the hot topic?
Yes, right.
And they start going away from that and giving you guys less time.
Yeah, less and less time. I didn't start experiencing less and less time until I took over for Jack Harry at Channel 41. That's the transition. I went from DAF. When I was done at DAF, when we were at DAF and we went through that 08, 09 collapse, okay? So that's when TV stations, every industry started cutting back, getting the older people, dropping the envelopes on their desk and saying, I think it's maybe about time, take your early retirement, doing those things. But when I got here in 81, we still had all the sports here. We did not have hockey.
Hockey had just left.
I missed hockey. And I'm coming in at 81. I'm April 1st. I'm coming in at the beginning of baseball season after Royals had just been in the World Series against Philadelphia Phillies and had lost, right? So, and George Brett had batted .390, and I'm coming to Kansas City. I had George Brett. And we got the Chiefs here, and we got basketball. The Kings were great, the whole thing. So in those days, I'd get 4.5 to 5.5 minutes at 5 and 6. I'd sometimes get 6.5 or 7 minutes at 10. Now, it was the golden age. Jack Harry and I, who was my longtime opponent over at Channel 5, but we became extremely good friends off the air. We'd try to beat their brains in on the air, but off the air, we were very, very good friends. And we often talk about that was the golden age of TV here in Kansas City. From, news standpoint, what they were doing news-wise and what we were doing sports-wise and the whole thing. It just really worked. And we got all kinds of time. We could do really great stories, in-depth stories.
You could do all kinds of specials.
We could do lots of specials. They'd give us an hour here. They would take programming out from the network, okay, and give us that hour, and it was like they'd take an hour from 7 to 8. Or from when we were done at 6:30 to 7 or whatever, and give us specials when we were doing specials for when the teams are really doing well. And it was just a time where we could do packages on people. You'd get to know them through our packages of telling these stories about these athletes, about their families, about their backgrounds, about who these people really were. And people got to know the athletes a lot better back in those days. I was live at Royal Stadium every night they played. We were live there. Somebody was live at the stadium every night on the 5 and 6
81 games, not just a special.
Not just a special. The weekend guys would be there on weekends too. So everybody got to know these athletes. The franchises were much easier on us as well. I remember Dean Vogelaar was the old PR guy over there. He'd bring a guy out for me every time at 5 and 6 o'clock. Or we'd go into the locker room and get some sound and send it back to the station, and then we could introduce that sound before a ball game and the whole thing. Danny Tartable used to come on with me a lot, the Bull, and we'd have the Bull session. He'd come on with me. You came on with me. We did a lot of stuff.
And your relationships with the athletes
was way different.
Because you were around every day.
Mm-hmm.
They saw you every day.
Right.
They knew, they got to know you.
Yeah.
Knew what you were about. So you had special relationships with guys that you don't see that anymore.
You don't see it anymore at all. And they knew too, because we could be standing around a batting cage talking about stuff, and they could be talking about stuff like, my contract, I'm really pissed. Contracts, the Joe doesn't want me around or something. And I knew, hey, listen, you want to talk about it? And they go, no. And I wouldn't use it. Right. I wouldn't use it, but it was always you had knowledge in the back of your brain about
why they did,
and they respected it. Then when they decided to do it, who could get the interview? You could go up there and say, you'd call them on the phone. I had their phone number. Say, hey, call them on the phone. Say, hey, you want to talk? Yeah, I said, I'll talk about it now. Yeah, let's talk about it. And then you would, that would help enhance your ratings with the public. They knew where to go if they heard about a big story happening. They knew what channel to turn to. And and a lot of it has to do with the guys I worked with as well. They were all respected. We all did the same thing. I wasn't their boss. We were in this. This is a team-oriented thing. We were together on this, and it really worked out. So great.
Not only together on this, you were together for long periods of time. I think that's something that as athletes in the city, we didn't see guys come in and out
like they do now
all the time.
Yeah.
We saw you year in, year out. Mm-hmm. We saw the afternoon guys. We saw the weekend. We saw
the morning people.
We saw Kevin Coots. We saw you guys were together.
Yeah, right.
Almost like a team, like we were. We saw you every year.
Yeah, all the time. You saw the same guys: Al Wallace, Kevin Keesman, Todd Lebo, John Kelly was there for a long time. We ended up with Amanda John as one of the first. Karen Kornacki was always a longtime person here in Kansas City, was one of the pioneer women for women being in the locker room and having to do it on a day-by-day basis with a team. Okay, she was on a local affiliate, so she was covering those teams on a day-by-day basis as well. We had Amanda John, we had Ann Carroll, we had a very diverse group of people as well. And I think they saw that as well. They saw that as pretty innovative, and I think they learned to respect you from that standpoint as well. So,
and as time went on and you guys were getting less and less, you were able to get on the radio and get back to your roots a little bit. And, take us through how that progression started.
Yeah, sure.
And why did you do it? And then once you start doing it a little bit, how much do you like getting back to your roots?
Yeah, it all started with Chad Boger and 1510 radio, which ended up morphing into 810 WHB, and now they're on FM as well. And it was Union Broadcasting really did it, and it was Chad Boger and Kevin Keatsman. They got together, and they went in it together, and Kevin took a big chance in his career to do it. He was on TV. He was doing well. He was getting job offers from other markets as well, because I was the main guy, and anybody who worked under me in certain times was looking, I'd really like to have his job, and maybe they could see, well, Frank's not leaving.
Right. He's not
so
going
maybe
anywhere.
I've got to go to another market somewhere. So they were always looking around, which I respected totally, and would have given them recommendations to go anywhere. I know Al Walsh went to Dallas for a year before he came back. He saw the light. He saw the light. So deal was then, I think that was Kevin left, and they were looking for programming. Obviously, Kevin was the afternoon guy and doing great over there. He's doing great. Despite the old studio out in Independence that we had cockroaches in the walls.
You call that a studio?
Whatever it was at that time. And so we Kevin was doing it. And so Kevin called me one day and said, hey, we're thinking about putting together a program. And we got Bill Moss and Tim Grunhard, two Chiefs players on board. We need somebody in there who has broadcasting background, because these two guys may go off the rails, which they did more often than not during the show. We'd like to have you in and do it with them. And so I'm thinking, well, what time of day you're talking? He said, well, from like 9 to 11 in the morning. So with my TV going later in the afternoon, I used to get in there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, work till 10:30 and get home by 11 or 11:15 at night. I said, yeah. I said, I'll do that. That sounds great. Supplement the income as well. That was great. And so we started on 1510. I remember we were there in August, I think, of 2001 is when we started, because I remember being on for a month and then 9/11 hit. And we were walking into the studio. I remember that day. And I was listening to radio, and somebody said, a plane just hit the side of the World Trade Center. And I went, a plane? That must be one of those sightseeing planes, little commuter planes or something. So we go in, and then it's on. We have it on TV, and you can tell right away that was no commuter plane or whatever when those planes hit the sides of those buildings. Terrible day, but I can remember that's what jogs me back to the memory of when we started that. And then we did the crunch time thing, and did that, and then that morphed over. I ended up working with I worked with George Brett, and I did it when Timmy and Bill decided to go to the dark side. They went over to the other side, which was a disruption, for Chad and for
Kevin.
Those
things happen.
Those things, it's competition. Right, that's when Intercom came into the market from Philadelphia.
They tried to make a push.
They tried to make a push, and they took Jason Whitlock as well. They went over and did that. None of them lasted there. They left, but that meant some jockeying and bringing other people on. George and I did it for a while. Then Dave Stewart and I did it for a while, and then I was off doing our own show. And I ended up filling in on all three other shows once a week with all three other shows, on the morning show, on the 10 to 2 show, and then on the afternoon show. So I ended up filling in for those guys, and now continue on. I still work with Seren Petro on Wednesdays from 4 to 5. So I'm still there. Chad, even though I'm out of everybody's demographic at my age. And so I'm still on 4 to 5 there. And my wife, Sarah, is now the owner of There's Just Something About Kansas City. It's a podcast as well about the people, places, and things that make it a great place to live. We're a 501c3, and we do that and drop a new episode every week. We're at 115, 120 episodes right now. So that's worked out real well. But again, as we talk about all this, it's all here. And I had several job offers over that period of time, and I used to call a friend of mine. I tell this story a lot. He was a sports director at the NBC affiliate in Houston, Texas. His name is Craig Roberts. And Craig spent now Houston was a huge market and is a huge market. But Craig had spent time and then moved to Houston to his thing. So I'd call Craig on the phone and say, Craig, I just got an offer from Pittsburgh. WPXI just offered me a contract, go back to my hometown. He goes, are you happy? And KC, I said, yeah, but I've always sort of had, he goes, they don't remember who the hell you are in Pittsburgh. They're not going to remember Frankie Boal, Pudgy Boal from Central Catholic High School. They're not going to remember you. So he said, just, if you're happy, looks like it's solid, why would you leave? So I turned down Pittsburgh. Then KYW in Philadelphia, one of the huge stations in the country. Philadelphia, one of the top 5 markets in the country, called and said, hey, we like a weekend guy. And I was the main guy. And we looking for a weekend guy. Our main guy is a little bit older. He's probably thinking about getting out some year. You'd be first in line for the job and the whole thing. And so I called Craig and he said, Philadelphia. He said, they're booing Santa Claus, pal. You sure you want to go back to Philadelphia? He said, they may love you for the first day. 3 years from now, they're going to hate you and you're going to be looking for another job. So I always sort of leaned on Craig a little bit, but always in the back of my mind, I knew I was in the right place. It just fit for everything. Fit for family. It fit for the atmosphere at work. It just fit all the way along. So it was it. This was it. Yeah.
So you officially somewhat retired in 2017.
Officially somewhat retired in 17 from television.
From television.
Right. And then stayed on and been doing radio and the podcast ever since. So still doing it. In fact, I told somebody the other day, I started on February 1st, 1976 in Grand Coulee, Washington. February of 2026 will be 50 years in broadcasting. So I think I stayed in the right place and did the right thing.
I think you did.
I think I did. Yeah, you bet.
And before we finish up here,
Yeah.
you talked about your podcast.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And do you want to pitch that again? And also, are there any charities in the Kansas City area that are near and dear to your heart that you'd like people to know about?
Yeah, right. There are several things here. Number one, like I said before, it's my wife's business. It's female-owned business, woman-owned, and that's important. We're a 501c3, so we rely on foundations and charities to fund us, obviously. Once we get to a certain point and can pay our bills, we're going to try to be a 90%er, which means any profit left over, 90% of it would go to charity, and we then keep 10% in order to keep
it going.
The podcast going, right? Yeah, that's the way we look at it and what we'd really like to do. Yeah, it's been great. For me, it keeps my brain going, B-Mac, like this is
We all
do
need
for
something
you.
to keep going.
Because like you, I've got to do the research on all the people we do, and we do a very eclectic group of people. We have what we call silos, which means we have entertainment here, we have sports here, entrepreneurs here, businessmen here, and then we have a various deal on the other side. So we have all kinds of silos to pick from, and we pick different people from those silos all the time. So for me, it's like I interviewed Joyce DiDonato. She's an international opera star. She's from Prairie Village. So to research her and then to be able to converse with her on her level is something, it really
we need something to keep going.
You need something to keep going, and it has been absolutely fantastic. As far as charities, there are many near and dear to our hearts. For me, a lot of it goes back to Vietnam. More Horses for Veterans, any kind of war-related type situation in Kansas City or nationally, I think is always going to be probably near and dear to my heart. I think like cancer and the heart, and I'm not saying anything against any of them, but they have so much funding nationally and internationally. They get so much funding that, some of these veterans type situations get sort of not pushed under the rug, but they don't get nearly as much as cancer and heart and stuff like that. So that is very near to me. It still hits home. That still hits home for me. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, but it just still hits home. So, yeah.
Well, Frank, thank you. Thank you very much
Thanks for the
coming
invite.
down and
this has been awesome.
spending some
I
time
get
with
to
me.
see you now. You live in downtown. I live in Spring Hill, Kansas.
Yeah, we
We're
get
on the other
together at a
sides
couple
of the world.
functions, but
yeah, that's it.
but it's always good to touch base with you. And I interned with you guys.
Yeah, you did intern with us
during the strike in 1994.
I remember covering you at
Yeah.
Blue Springs High School
And,
as a high school football player. I thought you're gonna, be that.
I was going to go to KU.
You're going to go KU and be that football player, but you made the right choice.
Picked the
as well.
safer sport.
Yeah, you did pick the safer sport, and you don't have to worry about concussions as much.
No,
either,
I feel good at 58.
Yeah,
because of that.
You're doing just fine. All the best to Mom and Dad.
Thank you.
God bless them. God bless you. And
Thank you very much. And
it's been great.
Like I said, I appreciate you being on,
Yeah.
and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Have a Day podcast. And as I said earlier, be sure to check us out on all our social media platforms and our YouTube channel at Have a Day Podcast. For Frank Boal, I'm Brian McRae, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.